Hey everyone, what's up? My name is PBM or Polar Red Mike. I'm the support player for Team Allegiance. Today I'll be doing a god guide for Khepri. In this guide I'll go over how to build Khepri, how to level your abilities, how to play the laning phase as well as team fights, and just what makes Khepri such a strong guardian and support god. Khepri is largely considered one of the best guardians in the game due to his strong crowd control abilities, his ability to peel for his teammates as well as save them, as well as his very powerful laning phase. Overall, Khepri has one of the highest skill caps of any Guardian or God in the entire game, so understanding how to play Khepri will greatly improve your success with both him and the support role in general. Khepri is the quintessential support god. His kit is entirely selfless. You won't want to build stuff like damage on this god. He is full utility, and he is a very, very good god to learn if you want to get into the support role. So now that we've gone through that, let's get into the game and we'll go over some of the basics of Khepri. This is a ranked qualifier game that I played about a week or so ago, and this game should give you a pretty good idea of what makes Khepri so strong, and we'll skip throughout this video to highlight what I'm talking about at the time. So first we can start with Khepri's passive, Fortitude. This is a pulsating buff around Khepri for a radius of 20. It will apply to both you and all of your teammates around you, and what it does is it places a shield on any target that is affected by it for 2% of their maximum health, up to a total of 10%. This will tick every 5 seconds out of combat and every 10 seconds in combat. So this passive is very strong because in the early game it'll give you more HP in the laning phase for both you and your hunter, which means you can trade up in fights at level 1 or whatever in lane and try to get lane dominance through that. This ability is also very important to stack up before team fights because you can give your team a ton of extra health going into a fight, and it's very potent to get stacked up on your solo laner as it can result in giving them hundreds of extra health before a fight. Moving on, let's talk about Khepri's first ability, Abduct. This is Khepri's escape. It's a dash with a range of 40, so it's a little bit shorter than other dashes in the game, such as, Sobek Pluck, so on. What it will do is, if it passes through enemy minions, it'll deal the damage listed there, but you can also dash at an enemy god, like you'll see right here, and if you hit an enemy god, it will damage them and pull them backwards with the Khepri. You can slightly turn your camera and angle the way you're pulling the enemy god with you, but it's not really that drastic. You can kind of turn them about 90 degrees if you hold your camera left or right the entire duration, so you can kind of control where you're dragging them. Overall, this is a very good crowd control for tanky targets. The unique thing about this ability is as you're pulling somebody along with you, they can auto-attack you, so you should be very careful of pulling hunters or junglers such as Kali and Mercury, because as you do that, they'll just lay into you and damage you for basically your entire health bar, and late game, they can just completely kill you in the duration of your Abduct, so try to be careful about when you use this. This ability also crowd controls the Khepri because while you're pulling them back, you can't cast other abilities, so it's very easy for the enemy team to follow up onto you as you're casting this. So be mindful of when you use this ability, but overall, it's very strong because it can really stop tanks in their tracks and put them into unfavorable positions, and this ability also does not suffer from diminishing returns, and we'll talk about what that means a little bit later on. Khepri's second ability is normally the ability you want to pick up at level 1 in the game, Rising Dawn. This ability is very good for level 1 fights and wave clearing. It has one of the highest damage on minions of any Guardian ability in the game at level 1. It also is very nice because it applies a protection debuff to any enemy that it hits, as well as damage reduction for any ally that it hits. This will include creeps, and the protection shred can also apply to stuff as Gold Fury, I believe, and if I'm wrong on that, then I'm just an idiot, excuse me. But I do believe that's how it works. This ability is the key to playing a good Khepri. It's a very versatile ability because, as I mentioned, if you shoot it through a teammate, it can give them a damage reduction buff, which means that they will be able to be a lot tankier than normal, and also it's very good at shredding tanks if you hit an enemy god, such as this Hercules with it. I went ahead and, well, I missed the 2, but you can go ahead and 2 an enemy tank and then use your Abduct on them to pull them into an unfavorable position, and they will have protection shred on them while they're getting pulled back. You can see I just fired the Rising Dawn to the mid Harpies to try to clear it, and it also passed through the Kali, and you could see that little effect around her waist when she is buffed by this ability. We'll go over how to use this ability best a little bit later on, as it is the key to playing a good Khepri, but this is normally the ability you want to get at level 1, and this is the ability that you will level first. Khepri's third ability is Solar Flare. This ability is a ranged circle-targeted root that Khepri fires out from a distance. It has a pretty good radius of 15, and it will apply damage to them, and the damage and the root duration, much like the Abduct, scales up as you hit it. You can see I used it on this Hercules right there. He dashes into it and then gets rooted on the ground, and he's stuck there for a pretty long duration. A 1.3 second root is pretty good for the first rank. It doesn't really benefit to level this ability up too much, as you only gain 0.1 seconds for each level, and the damage is the lowest for any of his 3 abilities. Actually, I think it has 10 more damage than the 2, but because the 2 has Prot Shred, the Rising Dawn has Prot Shred, it ends up being more damage on the 2 than the 3. Overall, this is the ability you want to level up last on Khepri. It can be leveled before the Abduct in some cases, but you normally want to max your Rising Dawn, and then you look to get the Abduct or the Solar Flare. I personally think the Abduct is better in most cases, because the Solar Flare doesn't have as long of a crowd control duration, and it has lower damage. The time where you would want to use the Solar Flare instead of the Abduct is if they have a lot of auto attack based gods and you don't think you can put yourself in an unfavorable position to Abduct. It might be better to use the Solar Flare. This ability is great at catching out immobile gods such as Ymir, Poseidon, Ra, Sylvanas. If you think you're going to be using mainly ranged crowd control in a game and you don't think you can play that much up in the front line, then it's better to max this ability after your Rising Dawn rather than Abduct. Khepri's final ability is his trademark ability and his alt, Scarab's Blessing. This alt is a single targeted buff that you place on any teammate, and what it will do is cleanse them of all crowd control effects. It will give them movement speed from 20 to 40%, and it will also make them slow immune for the entire duration. This alt has a 110 second cooldown, so it's very long, and the reason for that is this alt is the only revive in the entire game. So when you place this alt onto your teammates and you place a buff on them, if they are killed while this alt is active on them, instead of being killed, they will instead be revived. They will turn into a ball of light, and they will be brought towards the Khepri, so no matter how far away they are, if they get killed, they will be brought towards the Khepri. There's a bunch of cool plays you can make with this mechanic that we'll go over a little bit later, but overall, understanding how to use this ability is very important to being a good Khepri player. Alright, so now let's go into the God Builder, and we'll talk about how to build Khepri and how to start your item build out with him in the game. This is the God Builder that I have set up for every support god that I play. If you want a little bit more analysis and a little bit more of a guide on what items you should be buying in depth, I can link a video to a guide that I made a few days ago, and I'll put that in the description. You can check that out after this video. But to keep it just geared towards Khepri, Khepri's strength with his kit is that he's very good with both his passive, his Rising Dawn, as well as his alt. He's able to peel for his teammates and turtle around them very effectively, so defensive auras such as Sovereignty, Heartward Amulet, and Gauntlet of Thebes are very effective on him. We went over the crowd control abilities that Khepri has, and unfortunately his 3, the Root, Solar Flare, does not apply the Stone of Binding proc, so this is generally a weaker item on Khepri. However, if you do want to shred tanky targets and you're looking to 2-1 a lot of tanks, or you're looking to Rising Dawn them, to debuff them, and then you're going to abduct the tanks into your team, having a Stone of Binding will only proc on the Abduct, but when it does so, it'll make tanks very easy for your team to kill, so you can consider Stone of Binding kind of a cheap, I don't know how to word this, but just a cheap offensive item that you can look to use solely to kill enemy tanks and to get the most out of your Abduct. One of Khepri's weaknesses is that he doesn't have the greatest crowd control. He doesn't have a great initiation like a Sylvanas, Gebot, Athena Taunt, stuff like that. So it's very important that people die when you do crowd control people, and Stone of Binding could help you do that with your Abduct. Other stats that Khepri does well with are crowd control reduction. You can pick this up from items such as Wingblade. Crowd control reduction is very good on Khepri because his Rising Dawn as well as his Abduct require him to be close to the enemy at times, which leaves you susceptible to being crowd controlled. You also don't have any CC immunity in your kit, which means that it's very easy for people to chain CC you. Crowd control reduction will help prevent this and help make you a little bit tankier overall. Another stat that Khepri does very well with is cooldown reduction, and you can get this on items such as Breastplate of Valor, Relic Dagger, Spirit Robe, Shogun's Kasari, Genji's Guard, so on and so forth. Cooldown reduction is very good on Khepri because his abilities, such as his Rising Dawn, are fairly low cooldown, and being able to spam his Rising Dawn is very important. If you can get multiple Rising Dawns off throughout a fight, it can normally turn a fight by itself and win a team fight for your team. Using like the same words over and over, but I mean, yeah, no other better way to say that. When it comes to how to start a game with Khepri, you basically want to go with a normal start. I'll go over a couple options for you here. So you start Watcher's Gift no matter what on Khepri. He's a very strong support god. Khepri doesn't really thrive with any weird aggressive playstyles. I wouldn't look to build items such as Voidstone or Soul Reaver or any of that stuff on him. Khepri is a purely defensive and utility god. So Watcher's Gift just complements this playstyle. You don't have the greatest clear, so there's no sense trying to go some offensive starter item. So you're going to go Watcher's Gift. The normal start along with Watcher's Gift is Watchers, Boots 1, Health Potions, normally you buy 4 of these, and then Mana or Multi-Potions. I like to go Multi-Potions because I think the Watcher's Mana Sustain is enough for me. It also has MP5 on it as well as the Assist bonus, so you get a lot of mana back from Watchers, so I think Mana Potions are enough. However, if you're just starting to learn Khepri and you feel like you're running out of a lot of mana and you're just going too much, then there's nothing wrong with buying Mana Potions. You can totally get away with that. An alternative start for Khepri that you could go is you could build the Watcher's Gift, but instead of going Boots 1, you could go ahead and go right into your Chalice of the Oracle and get that online fast. What this will allow you to do is ward at level 1, as well as just save a little bit of gold because you're going to be buying less potions at the start of the game, and you're likely going to buy a Chalice anyways. So this will make it so that you're warding more, and you're warding more efficiently, and you're spending less quote-unquote wasted money with potions. The weakness to this is obviously it takes up one of your consumable slots, so instead of being able to get health potions and multi-potions, you can normally only get health potions. I don't recommend this build unless you're an experienced Khepri player and a support player in general. Oftentimes you will burn through your multi-potions and your healing potions as is if you're playing very aggressive in the laning phase, so unless you perfectly know your limits and you can get the most out of your Watcher sustain, I wouldn't do the start. But if you are that player and you do feel like you're comfortable with the amount of sustain that you have with only your healing potions, then going Chalice at level 1 is a great option for you. Alright, now let's talk about matchups. We're going to assume that you're duo laning with Khepri, and it'll be a Hunter and a Guardian versus another Hunter and a Guardian. So if you're the Khepri, as I mentioned before, his Rising Dawn ability at level 1 is normally the ability you pick up every single time. It's very good in lane, and it makes him one of the best laning gods in the game. Khepri really only loses to 2 gods in lane in terms of clear, and that is Sylvanas and Ymir, as well as on the Hunter side, if a team has Izanami, they will likely outclear Khepri. But other than that, Khepri can win pretty much any other matchup in clear. In terms of how to play matchups throughout the rest of the game, Khepri is very good at catching out immobile gods such as Sylvanas, Geb, and Ymir. However, these matchups can go 50-50. For example, a Ymir can also wall off the Khepri and stop his escape, which is his dash, from getting him away out of safe or out of trouble, so he can freeze the Khepri and CC chain him. Geb also can be a situational counter to Khepri because if Khepri really only has single target initiation tools with his Abduct, and Geb can easily cleanse those off his teammates, so often if you're playing Khepri versus Geb, you want to look to engage on the Geb. Likewise with Sylvanas, Khepri and Sylvanas kind of have a 50-50 matchup. I think Khepri generally gets the better of it at the top level because Khepri can apply Protection Shred to the Sylvanas and also catch him out very easily, not only with his Abduct ability, but also with his Solar Flare ability. This ability is great against Sylvanas because his initiation range is normally longer than Sylvanas unless Sylvanas hits a free hand pluck on the Khepri. So in general, I think Khepri is a little bit better at catching Sylvanas out of position than vice versa, and he's normally a great pick in lane against Sylvanas as well if you have an aggressive early game Hunter. Khepri also does very well against gods such as Bacchus and Athena. The reason for this is Khepri's alt is great at countering those gods. Excuse me, I can't speak English, but Khepri alt is very good at countering both Athena and Bacchus. The reason for that is both of these gods really like to burst down a single target in a team fight, so having your revive can basically deny Bacchus value from his entire kit. Again, all these support matchups can go 50-50. It's very easy for Bacchus to catch the Khepri out of position, flop him, ult him, and then just kill him. So you really want to watch how you position with Khepri, and we'll go over that a bit more in depth later. Khepri also has a very good matchup against Athena because he can cleanse her taunt in a team fight and stop her from getting picks because he can revive people. He can also pluck her out of position, root her fairly easily, shred all of her protections. If your teammates are playing well and you're all organized, it's very normal that Khepri will just counter Athena, and Khepri also wins lane against Athena, so you already can get ahead. And if Athena can't be aggressive, then she's normally a fairly weak god. As far as other matchups go, Khepri can get killed by a lot of these aggressive supports. Ares, Ymir, Bacchus all do very well at getting Khepri out of position and bursting him down, so you want to be very mindful of your positioning when you're playing Khepri. It's very important as Khepri that you do not die first in a fight, because it's very important that you're there to peel for your teammates. That's what your whole kit is designed to do, is save your teammates and live long in team fights. So now let's talk a little bit more in depth about how to use all of Khepri's abilities. We'll start with his pluck. Your pluck is normally going to be used on tanky targets. The reason for this is you get punished by diving the enemy's backline and pulling in front of them, and abducting in front of them, I should say, because it kind of crowd controls the Khepri because you can't cast other abilities while you're in this. You can't put a shell on yourself while you're plucking people, which makes it very easy for people to collapse on you. So normally what you want to do is win the front line by plucking a frontliner out of position. As you can see, the best way to do this is what I did to both the Hercules and the Tyr right here. They come into the fight, into your team. You want to apply your 2 to them to give them a protection shred debuff, and then you go ahead and abduct them into your team. That way it's very easy for your teammates to just shred the tanky target, and if you win the front line as Khepri, it's normally very easy to just win any team fight in the game, because they cannot initiate onto your carries, and even if the enemy carries do try to kill your carries, you can just revive them with your ult. When it comes to how to use Khepri's 2 effectively, it is a very good ability to clear, but in teamfights what you're really looking to do with Khepri's Rising Dawn is fire it through as many allies as you possibly can. You'll see right there I abducted the Chang'e, and then I backpedaled a little bit to try to get my 2 on both the Kali and the Chang'e to shred the Chang'e's protections and give my Kali a little bit more damage reduction. Overall, the more people you hit in a teamfight with your Rising Dawn, the better. This ability is critical to playing a good Khepri, as I mentioned early, because your Khepri 2, your Rising Dawn, will give both a buff to your allies and a protection shred debuff to enemies, and I can't stress how important this is. It's very important that you decide in team fights on the spot which is more valuable to you and when. If your teammates are getting engaged on, you should look to use the damage reduction and fire this ability through your teammates. This ability does not have a limit on how many gods it can apply to and how many gods it can hit, which is why I say normally the more you hit with it, the better. When it comes to how to use Khepri's 3, his Solar Flare, you really want to use this to catch people out of position. Tanks or immobile characters, can be carries, whatever. As you can see, I use it on this Tyr right here who ults in, and then I just go ahead and root him, and he just basically dies because he's standing in front of my carries. The root duration on this Solar Flare is very valuable, and something to note about roots are that they do not suffer from diminishing returns. I mentioned this earlier in the video about Khepri's 1 Abduct, and what diminishing returns are, for those of you who don't know, is anytime a god is crowd controlled, they gain a stack of diminishing returns, which means the next application of crowd control will not last its full duration. However, this mechanic does not apply to knockups, knockbacks, and roots. Because of that, Khepri's root is a very strong crowd control ability because it levels up in the duration of the root as you put points into it. Same with Khepri's Abduct, it does not suffer from diminishing returns, so both of Khepri's 2 crowd control abilities will last their entire duration every time you hit them. In general, this is what makes you want to max Khepri's Abduct over his Solar Flare, because it has a longer duration and does do more damage. However, the Khepri 3 Solar Flare is better at catching out immobile targets, so if you think you're going to be CCing people from a distance against stuff like a Ymir, Poseidon, Ra, it's better to max the Solar Flare and use it to give your mage easy follow-up. You can combo this with a lot of mages. Nox, Scylla, Ra all come to mind. They can get free abilities off on targets who you root, and overall can be very difficult for any immobile character to play around this. Often the trademark of a good Khepri is how well you use Scarab's Blessing, though. This ability has a very high skill cap because of the cleanse that it has. You can use this ability to cleanse Athena taunts and stuff like that, or Ymir freezes. Oftentimes the cleanse can be enough to save somebody, and you don't always have to try to get the revive from your Scarab's Blessing. Something to note against more experienced players when you use Scarab's Blessing is it's very apparent when people have this buff on them, so they can wait for the buff to expire and then just kill somebody in your ult, and then you don't really get value out of it. If you are against more high-level players and more experienced players, it can often be better to just use your Scarab's Blessing to cleanse CC. That way your carries can save their actives. They may not have to beads and Athena taunt. If you choose a Scarab's Blessing, you let them know that that's the play you're looking for. you can also use Scarab's Blessing to go ahead and chase down kills because you can give them slow immunity and movement speed, So it's very easy for assassins to dive the backline, and overall, the best application of Scarab's Blessing is either for peel on a hunter or a mage, where they can just kind of free cast on people diving them and live and kind of stall out a team fight, and normally you can get enough damage off in that time to just win the fight even if they do die. And then the other way to use it is to allow an assassin to dive the enemy backline. If you find that you have an assassin like I do in this ranked game of Kali, it's very nice to be able to give the Kali basically an additional term of immunity along with her ult, so that it's very hard for the enemy to deal with them and peel them off of them. Overall, Khepri is a very strong support god. I tried to go over as much as I could in this video, but I'm sure I did miss some stuff. Just try to play Khepri with an open mind and try to think about every decision that you make. Because his abilities can be so versatile, it's often not clear what the best decision in any one fight was until you get a lot of games under Khepri, or under your belt with Khepri. So, try the god out. I hope this god helped you. If it did help you, please go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. You guys can also check out my Twitter and my Twitch if you want more content such as this, or if you want more analysis. I urge you guys to go ahead and check out this ranked game, and you'll hear my thought process, and you'll probably learn a lot more about Khepri through that in conjunction with this guide. And yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you next time.